Hey there. Welcome to the party. On today's podcast, I'm interviewing Andy Holmes, the owner of Penhale Bicycle Company. Penhale is an independent frame builder that makes frames for those that want to adventure across the world or just explore their own backyard, maybe do a little bit of both. Andy talks about what got him into bikes in the first place, some of his history, some of his rides, and then we kind of do a deep dive into the materials used on bike frames. Penhale actually does titanium and steel bikes. So it's cool to learn a bit about the process of how he goes about designing and manufacturing these badass bike frames. Let's get into it.
A bike and camping too.
Now, part of my issue is I've got a wrecked back,
Mm-hmm.
and just recovering from a knee injury from last year, and I've barely ridden. But it's like now things are like slowly getting back into the swing of things. It's kind of nice. The reason I'm riding the bike I am right now is because my body's wrecked.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like
Well,
52 years old.
is that the this most recent injury that you had? Like, have you had any really bad injuries in the past? Like, I know you did a lot of racing and touring over the decades. Was there any bad injuries back then?
Yeah, when like 3 broken pelvises, maybe 4 if you count a traumatic high
Mm.
school incident, and then work my way up my body from there or down my body. Depends on how you want to work it.
Was
But
any of it
yeah,
like permanent as far as kind of just affecting your physical performance?
pelvis, yes.
Yeah.
Then we got stuck in a ditch in my little van and in a place we shouldn't have been, and I was stupid enough to think that I could actually lift the rear quarter up whilst my friend who couldn't drive tried to drive us out, and something just went pop, and that was me basically destroying a disc in the middle of my spine, right
Oh,
between my
geez.
shoulder blades, and that's kind of why my bike is set up the way it is right
Mm-hmm.
now. And I've been hit by a handful of cars, um, all sorts of stuff. It's kind of a fascinating long list of breakages. And probably the worst one was just basically being um, just a random crash out on a trail. And I fractured my sacrum and tore a bunch of stuff on a lot of my hip flexor muscles. And that was kind of it. It was kind of, well, my whole body doesn't like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a week in
So,
the hospital trying to figure out what was going on. And it was a tiny fracture, like a
jeez.
maybe quarter-inch long, and that was just putting pressure on my femoral nerve, and it stopped me walking. And that was probably a good thing, because if I was walking, I'd have probably figured out that my hip flexors on both sides were in ragged kind of messes. So
So it took quite a bit for that to kind of heal to the point
yeah,
where you could actually
it's still
ride.
not good because ligaments like that never completely heal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like if you look through my list of breakages, big bike crash, 1990, fractured skull,
Jeez.
concussion. Um, Not long after that, a big bang, landed, slapped the dirt hard, fractured my right ankle. Um, Let me see. Then nothing much until I moved over here. Because the problem was I was a bike messenger for quite a
Uh,
few years in Manchester, as well as working at shops and all that kind of fun stuff. And just kind of, I was a target. I'm a dude riding a bike. And if you're driving a car around, obviously I'm the lowest form of life out there. So it doesn't matter if you take me out. So
mhm. And so when any of that happened, did it ever cause you to hesitate going back on the bike, or did you always kind of feel like I gotta just figure out how to do it now at this point? Or was there kind of some fear that came up with those incidents?
It was a little bit. I mean, because there always is.
Yeah.
I'm from being a bike messenger. I'm a lot more rowdy on a bike sometimes, and when I'm pedaling at speed than I think some people are. But then on the other side of that, riding with friends, I think have this kind of like sixth sense of like I'm looking at what a driver's doing, and I can do that's increased dramatically over like the last you know like the last big incident I had. Basically I got hit by this is before me fracturing my sacrum, but I got hit by a car like a mile from my office when I was working for Felt, and straight over the hood of the car, landed on the road, tried to get up, and the only thing I could do, because I have pretty solid upper body strength, was through my bike probably like 20 feet to the sidewalk so no one would drive over it. That's where my brain is. Save the bike, save the bike. Hospital can fix everything else. And
Must have been a pretty nice bike then, huh?
it was, that was
Sentimental.
yeah, kind of. It was a when I was at Felt, we had a bike called the F1X cyclocross bike, and I put fenders and a rack on it, and I got a fork from Richie that had lowrider bosses on the front on it. So basically, lowrider rack on the front, fenders, and I joked one time to the sales team, "Oh, this is a new T1X," and so what does that stand for? Tour 1X, one cross, and they all lost their minds because we'll never sell a touring bike. And it's like, there I am, and that was the bike that I got hit on. Luckily, nothing was wrong with that. It was just my body was mangled a little bit.
Yeah. And so was that when you were still living over and working in England then?
No, so that was when I was working for Felt Bicycles. So, I think we probably should go back through.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm curious, I did a little research, looked on your website and stuff, and it looked like you grew up in the English Peak District. So I'm
Yeah.
curious when you grew up there, what kind of got you into bikes, but also how did the bike culture, how would you say the bike culture compared there versus now what you see, over here?
So time wise, obviously, I was born in 1970, so that's a long ass time ago. It's really sad to think about it, but um, basically, first memory of really riding a bike, other than this little plastic three-wheel tractor that I had with a front, like I could pedal around the backyard, was my mum. The memory was my mum pushing me off down the road on this little kid's bike, and she was the one who basically got me into riding. Never had training wheels or anything like that. Couldn't tell you how long it took me to learn how to ride, but I know full well that that was about the last time I ever remember her holding the back of my bike and pushing me off down the road. I mean, not saying that my dad wouldn't have done it. He was busy. He had like full-time job, and my mom had a lot more time, and so that was probably I was probably 4 or 5 years old at the time, maybe even younger than that. And from that, even coming up to like 10 years old, my idea of fun was being about as feral a little kid as you can get. Jump on my bike and I'd be gone. Down to like the local little country park, riding the trails there, riding this little 20-inch wheel bike, cruising around, coming back. My dad would say, "Hey, you got a flat tire?" And I said, "Yeah, well, I do." And he said, "You can fix it." And basically, he kind of told me what to do, and that's like the first time I really got into bike mechanics. Was basically fixing my own flat tires, like 9 or 10 years old. Um, then from there, I mean, I got a 700C bike, a Falcon road bike, and I was not nice to that bike even in the slightest. My idea of fun was canal towpaths, and like, oh, if I take those stairs down that way, I can get out into the other part of the park. And I beat the snot out of that bike. Wasn't a mountain bike. This is, like 1980.
So
So
what was
mountain
the
bikes,
width? What was the width on those tires?
they were 27 1 1/4, so 27
Okay.
inch. So what's that? That's like probably 30 millimeter tires.
Okay.
And I would go through a rear rim every couple of months, and either scrounge up some money from my parents or attempt to do some little odd jobs so I could afford to buy a brand new wheel, because there was no fixing those wheels. But that's kind of like where I really got into riding, and more to the point of just like going out and just like exploring, going seeing
hmm
stuff. And like, oh, hey, if I ride up here, I can get to that place. Or what's down this road? It's like,
Yeah.
um,
Kind
a
of
lot of
putting the
people,
bike to the test and seeing what its limits were.
yeah, to a certain extent, but more of it was just seeing what I can see.
hmm
And like, I, not long after that, I mean, I got a really nice road bike. Um, and then, mountain bikes appeared. And my dad basically we went down to the shop, and he's like, I'm going to buy you something. And there was this bike with these big ass tires on it. So it was like, that was probably 1985, and that was a Falcon something or other. Couldn't tell you the name of it. Rode that for a year. Absolutely. I mean, it had cantilever brakes on it, friction shifting, 6 speed at the back. Maybe it's even five at the back. Beat the crap out of that with little like 1.8 tires, which is what everybody rode. Broke the frame. My dad worked for trading standards, which basically they dealt with shops who weren't being very nice to customers, and they wouldn't replace the frame under warranty. He talked to them. They got me a better frame, and the only reason I got rid of that frame is because it was rusted to hell. That's not long after I moved here, but it was just going and exploring and like loading that bike up. I put a rack on the back of it, sleeping bag, I had a backpack, and I'd go like Trafford Bowland or Lake District all the time.
hmm Do you remember
That's
your
kind of,
your very first time doing anything like that? Like the first time you actually took equipment and camped out?
first time was probably 80s, no, 85. Because I went out to a place called Hayfield, which is in the Peak District. Rode out there, crazy sleeping bag, which was like 4 pounds. I had this tent, which we'd had for a long time, which probably weighed 8 or 9 pounds, in a backpack. Rode out there. It was middle of summer, so it's crazy hot, like 70 degrees. A little tiny gas stove and cooked noodles, and I mean it was a decent ride. It was probably like 25 miles each way, and just like it was a commercial campsite, because my brain wasn't into oh, where do you go to places where you don't need to spend money at a campground?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I was just curious because like you went from, you know, it sounded like doing more of this just day exploring on a bike in the
Yeah,
beginning, right? And then to the point where now you're doing a multi-day thing, packing equipment, um,
yeah,
just
and
kind
it's
of
a big flip.
extending the exploration, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'd been to Hayfield before. I mean, I'd hiked out there, so I knew the area. But then I went up through the hills and down a couple of trails, which now, if you put a bike on there, you're probably going to get arrested because it's a footpath. And in the UK, there are very strict rules about where
Mm-hmm.
you can and can't ride. Parked up there, camped. I went, oh, this is pretty cool. And then it took a little while after that, and I actually bought myself a decent. I was 15, so it's like everything's on a budget. Like, what can I like go to the pantry? What can I steal out of here that my parents won't notice I can use? And not thinking that they're all right. They will give you the stuff. And I, very quickly turned that from like little trips out to there to, my idea of a good weekend was doing like 120, 130 miles up to the Lake District, bivy bag on the shore of Lake Windermere or one of the other big lakes, grab fish and chips and a 4-pack of Guinness from the local store and then, sit there having some, a glorious time on the edge of the water. So
That's awesome. Was there a specific moment when you did that where you just I'm sure as you did it, it kind of evolved and you continued to kind of fall in love with that as like a way to explore. But was there any specific um memorable part you remember that just made you kind of really fall in love to it and like knew that that's kind of what you wanted to continue to do? Because I mean, at this point, you've continued into the bike industry. But was there anything that was kind of a point or like a catalyst that kind of just continued that love or made your passion kind of stronger?
there's one time I was up in the Lake District, top of Angletown, which is a little tiny lake. And a tarn up in the north means small lake or pond. I'd ridden along the ridge and I'd stopped and I was absolutely shattered. It was probably April or May. And so, the sleet was coming in straight sideways. I got into this little kind of protected spot. I said, got to eat something. Fired up my stove, like instant mashed potatoes and freeze dried beef and stuff. And I made myself a little cottage pie and, drinking a cup of tea and just sitting there and under just, it was kind of later in the day and the sun just kind of just came in from out, from behind the clouds and just lit that whole place up. And it was, standing there, I have to stand up and bask in this. It's actually warm. And it's like, this is freaking cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, like I can do this kind of stuff whenever I want. And, like a lot of the people I grew up with is like, they do their club bike rides and then they go off to work. It's like, I'm the only person who's out here stupid enough to do this. I'm all right. It's like, this is kind of all I need as the universe.
Yeah.
And load it up. I'm feeling all warm inside because of the food. I'm feeling warm. Drop back down into Ambleside, camped, and that night the camp was probably one of the most terrible camps I think I've ever had because we had so much rain. My tent was actually sloshing underneath. So I packed everything up, went into the shower block because luckily that thing was still running, turned the shower on, warmed myself up, slept in the shower block, and I'm still going, this is a pretty good trip. It's like
Yeah.
you're almost hypothermic, yet your brain is still going, this is all right. And then, rode my way back to Ashton, which is where I live just outside of Manchester. And that kind of got me hooked on just not big adventures, but just adventures going.
Yeah. Yeah, finding time, fitting it in. I would agree with, your sentiment there because you know, anyone that's done this kind of stuff, I think you have those moments where it's like you chose to get out there and you might have terrible weather at first, but because
Hmm.
you continued on, like you said, you'll have these times where you might be the only one out in a given area, and then the
Yeah,
sun comes out and it's beautiful and you have this moment, and it's just because you went out there through the storm that you're now on the other side of it and you get to have that experience, and you might have all this wild stuff happen, but I think when you're done and you can get to a pub or you can kind of get comfortable in camp, like when you've kind of gone through some of that
exactly.
challenge, you come out on the other side of it, and it makes everything else, that burger at the end or whatever, just taste even better, and that
So
whole
much better. I
experience.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it can be crap food, but it's like this is the best you've ever had. So my best friend on the planet, Trevor, classified as my brother, but because my mom wants to adopt him. But we've been on trips like a few years back. I was over in the UK for Christmas, and we went out into the woods. It's wet, it's cold, and he slung his hammock up, slung my hammock up. We weren't going to stay, but then he lit a little fire, cooked steak sandwiches, which are about the best steak sandwiches I've ever had. Pulled out a little clay flask filled with blackcurrant rum. We
Hmm.
had some beers, and it's like those are the things. It's like this was a terrible day to go for a bike ride. We're walking through like ankle deep mud, and then we get just hanging out under a tarp, and
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. And that's kind of been one of my things. It's trying to get that bottled up and shared with everybody else. And obviously, not everybody's going to want that, but I think a lot more people would love that if they had got the chance to experience it
Yeah, exactly.
just once.
I think everyone can have that experience at their own level, but when you see how it affected you and that feeling you got, you're like, is there a way for other ones to realize? Because a lot of times when you talk about, how many miles you went and what you did, you'll have other people that are just like, that's crazy. I would never do that. Like, what are
Yeah,
you doing? But then when you're out there and you get to camp or a beautiful view or whatever it is, and you're standing next to your bike and a buddy or whatever, you're kind of thinking to yourself, like, I'm out here on my bike. Like, this is awesome. Like, I got here on my bike. Now we're hanging
hmm,
out. And, the bike is just another tool, to get
yeah, it's
places. But
exactly.
it's still like, it just, it's really cool to be out in some of those places and know how you got there.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've always, I mean, that's kind of even when I was back at Felt, maybe not, probably not before that, but that was one of the things that's like, we're making these bikes to make people think that they need to go fast. Sucks, right? Going fast sucks. I was a pretty decent time trialer. I am never going to even think about time trialing ever again. It's like, because you get to the end, you throw up, and then you go home. Okay, great. What did you win? A
Yeah.
little tiny stuffy badge,
And
a little.
did you even see anything while you were speeding through it?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas so one of my all time, still back in the UK, my all time favorite competition that I did. Um, so we had Trail Quest and then the Polaris Challenge. And basically, if you don't know, but the UK is covered completely by these maps from Ordnance Survey, which is a governmental organization. And they are, um, brain's not working, like 20 kilometers by 20. And everything inside those has a grid square. So there is a coordinate, almost like you'd have with a GPS. And basically, you would look at that coordinate, across the bottom and vertical and horizontal, and that would be a checkpoint. I don't know if have you ever seen orienteering where you'd run around and you'd clip a little
Mm-hmm.
tag,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's like that, but on bikes, but on a massive scale. And then you'd start off in the morning, and there'd be a secret camp. The only way you could get to the camp is by starting that morning, and then your goal was to get as many points as you could. That's about as good as you can get for a competition. Because honestly, most of the time, most people don't care about getting all the points. They just want to ride somewhere they've never ridden before. Like we did the Lake District, we did Central Wales, which is in the west of England. The west of the Great Britain. I'm going to get shouted at by by Welsh friends. It's like, it's not part of England. we kicked you guys out. And then doing like Trail Quest stuff down in Cornwall as well, where you're cruising around these little. It's like, I had no idea that this 20-mile long dirt road even existed. And you're hammering along there, you get to checkpoint, you punch your little card, and then you look at the map, where are you going to go next? And, that's, in my brain, that's about as good competition use as I would want to do. Like stage racing, mountain bike racing, all that kind of stuff. Nah. Go somewhere where I can actually carry a tent with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And when you talk about even like, whether it's back roads, gravel roads, I think there are people that lean into doing more of the mountain biking and off-road stuff just because they're wary of cars and they want to get away from cars as well. But even if it's roads where you could drive, people will still, you can car camp, you can drive places, you could drive to mountain bike trailheads, you can mix it up, you can do a lot of that. But it is a totally different experience when you bike it. And that's one thing I like is like, even out in Eugene, when I would explore some of those roads, I'd go out Mohawk and some of the BLM and National Forest and stuff. And yeah, you can drive through it. But when you bike through a lot of that, it does, just riding out in the forest for a day on your bike can feel like a whole adventure,
Yeah. I mean, even if you do like 10 miles, what you see in 10 miles is a complete different, kind of perspective than you will obviously in a car. If you're doing 30 miles an hour, that's gone, like 20 minutes, whatever it is. If you're walking, you're 10 miles, 6 miles into it, you're going, I wish I hadn't decided to do this. On a bike, you go, this is kind of, we can see things. We can.
You might realize you're going by a creek or something, and then you can stop and check out some spots. And then there's even been plenty of times where I've done a ride like that, and I noticed some things around town that I didn't even notice before. And then I can come back with the wife and dog for a picnic or something if I saw a cool spot or something, So it's almost like you're scouting the area on your bike too,
Yeah, I did that today. I mean, I was pedaling through town and like, what is this like alleyway? And it was a dirt alleyway. Eugene's filled with alleys.
Mm-hmm.
And I, cruised along. I was like, this is kind of fun. And we, a good friend of mine who lives in town, we were talking about doing like an urban gravel race. And I'm like, no, urban gravel ride.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to be racing. We just want to, go and show people things. Because, it's like everything on bikes and like the last, since bikes have been invented, so late 1800s, it starts off as being this fun, relaxing, seeing the universe kind of thing. And all of a sudden, someone wants to put a label on it, number one. And number two, how can we race it? There's what was a brilliant podcast, not going to mention the name, helped the guy out when he started. It was about adventures, bike packing, and then all of a sudden, all the content was about racing.
Mm-hmm.
Racing. That's like, tell you one thing, 200 miles on a bike, and you're not sleeping, you're riding through the night. There's such a tiny percentage of the people on this planet would enjoy that. However, 200 miles over a few days, I say, hey, there's this brilliant waterfall. We went skinny dipping in this lake. We camped by the side of this place, and the sunrise was amazing. that's, kind of, well, number one,
Yeah.
that's what I've been trying to cultivate. And number
Yeah.
two, like, that's, kind of what we need more of.
Yeah. And I would agree. I mean, you're talking to the right, this podcast, Bike, Camp, and Chill, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's kind of been my thought as well. My mentality here is you have some great content and channels out there um, that are it is inspiring to see people racing and doing that side of it. But like you said, what percentage of people can actually do that?
Yeah.
And there's also danger in that, or people that overdo it. There's it can cause some debate and controversy around how they do it. But I think there's this whole category of people that could just get out there and do a couple miles, and you could bike a very small percentage of the day and then just hang out most of the day and camp or
Hmm.
whatever. And I think just finding ways to get outside more and show people that you don't have to be doing this 200-mile 2-day, you know, race thing at all. Um, and so I think it is about finding that balance and showing people that there is a chill side of the pack, right? It's not all about
Yeah.
being an ultra endurance athlete.
Because, okay, so I chatted to, I can't remember the name of the woman who was, she was, I mean, one of the fastest bike packers out there back when I was bike packing was just starting when I
Hmm.
was still at Felt. And it's kind of one of the last things I was there. And, we were talking, and it's like, so you did this right. How much sleep did you have? And I went, I'm thinking, calculating out. And so I do this over 2 days. I probably, if I was at the time, obviously a lot thinner than I am now, a lot faster than I am now. I still wasn't fast. And she said, no, I wouldn't sleep. I'd say the weight wouldn't even take, I'd just take an ultralight bivy bag and that's it. And I'm going, that's pain. It's just pain. And it's like you're going to a place you've never been before. And you're not enjoying it. Basically, you're enjoying hurting yourself. And there's there's a category of people that like that. Usually involves whips and things, but it's like, no,
Yeah,
it's like, go out and just enjoy we're not here to torture ourselves.
yeah. I posted a video a few years ago when me and my cousin did the Stagecoach 400, and we did that in 7 days, and I'm pretty sure you've done it, so I'm curious your thoughts on it. But we did it in 7 days, and that was probably one of the first videos I posted. I just like having fun with recording video along the way, show people what
Yeah.
the route kind of looks like, but maybe not necessarily show every single thing. You want there to still be some surprise and adventure. So I kind of keep it with that in mind. Um, but I remember getting comments on that video where lots of people raced that route, and had to have been a few of those racers that commented they watched the video, and they would say things like, wow, this is awesome. I actually get to see some of it because half the time it was
Yeah.
in the dark when I rode it, because
Hmm.
they're just riding through the night. And so, yeah, like you're saying, it that does blow my mind that you could be in a whole new area, you never been, and you may not have really got to see it. You didn't get to savor it, that's for sure. Um, so, that,
Yeah.
that
The
is
only
just a
thing that
totally different experience.
exactly. I mean, the only thing I mean, talking to a bunch of people who've raced and raced the stagecoach, it's like, oh, best thing about that was the burrito when I dropped down into the valley. It's like, but what about going down through Sheep Canyon? God, that place is glorious. I went, sheep. Oh yeah. Anyway, I was going through that, and I wanted to get down to the convenience store before it closed at 5 p.m. It's like, well, just those things don't compute in my brain. It's like I've got enough food with me. I'm going to stay at um, the little cabin up at the top of Sheep's Canyon, or I'm going to do those kind of things. So it's like you're missing out on, especially there. You drop into the flatlands and you're heading north in the desert there. There's so much. I mean, it's especially if you're doing it early in the year,
Hmm.
like April, kind of March or April time. You got all the flowers there. You got some the art when you're dropping into Anza Borrego itself,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
and it's like no, I'm not riding this at night. I want to be a part of, be kind of embedded in nature. I want to be part of this. But like the whole of that ride, like going over San Jacinto, brain's not working. Some of the bigger peaks, just like walking and then just sitting down, having a drink, water, not beer, because
Yeah.
we're desert. um, and it's like the scenery is stunning down there. I mean, out of everything, I'm a if you can't give me something like the Trough of Bowland in the north of England, then right after that is a desert.
Hmm.
I'm 100% a desert dweller, which is funny for a big pasty white guy. Um,
But is that also because it kind of, contrasts with where you grew up?
a little bit. I mean, plus it's those endless expanses.
Hmm.
So I rode. So back in 2000, I rode down to La Paz in Baja, following some of the bits which were now on the Baja Divide, and it's like you get past, like you get south of San Felipe, and it's like nothing, and it's amazing. You got these. You're on the. They just finished one of the big main roads. I think that's the three. But I thought, that's too easy, and I'm riding basically like dirt roads, and you get passed every half an hour by a group of guys going to work on the local farms in their little Honda Accord on these rough dirt roads that are used for off-road racing. And there's nothing. There's cactus. There's tumbleweed. There's like it's this vision out of a John Huston kind of cowboy movie kind of thing. I think that's the right guy I'm thinking of. But that kind
John
of
Wayne?
stuff. I was thinking more direct, but yeah, John Wayne as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Any of the
Yeah, yeah.
Johns,
Yeah.
and it's just there's something wild about it, and it's just to be alone, away from any civilization. Even in the UK, you can get to a place. It's hard on foot. I mean, I ran the Pennine Way, which goes from Carlisle all the way down, and that was hard. Basically fast packing, lightweight backpack on foot. You're not seeing anything. On a bike, you can do it most of the way. And you can do, obviously, you can do so much more and see so much more at a better pace. And that's the same thing in Baja. It's like you can travel through these places at a perfect speed and see, like lizards, snakes,
Hmm.
type stuff that you would never normally see, or you'd be dreading because you're running out of water and because you're on foot, and that's the kind of but you're also so far away from anything that it shows you any form of civilization.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got two lanes, basically double track in the dirt. That's it. And then you come around a corner in Baja, and all of a sudden there's like, what's this mission doing here with this huge church? I was following a dirt road, and then you realize, no, that was actually the main road. You came in on the main road, and the other beautiful thing about being on a bike versus a car is like you riding into town, and some vendor waves at you, and you turn in, and it's tacos, a couple of cokes, and you're happy. Whereas if you're in a car, you drive into that and you go, okay, cool, take some photographs and drive off. And that's happened all over the place. Like we're touring in Taiwan, a little bit in China, um, like Europe, just like you find these places.
Hmm. And out of those places that you've ridden, do you have a favorite region or a place that you would even go back, or do they kind of all have their own, different things
Um,
that, to like about the area?
they're all they all are about the same. I would love to spend a bit more time in China. I mean, that was kind of more of a. I mean, I've traveled a lot to China for work. Taiwan, amazing. I mean, like going down the East Coast. That was more of a. I'm in Taiwan for 2 weeks, and I have like 2 days of work, and I just went screw it, and I'm on my 130 mil trail bike, which is the absolutely worst bike to have in Taiwan. But this one folded up into my travel bag, that and a backpack, and spent a week riding down to the south of the island. Brilliant place, crazy hot, crazy humid, crazy wet. I mean, if anything, I would go back to Baja in a heartbeat. I mean, I guided tours down there for Camp 4 Low, which is an off-road company with Jeeps. And since then, I've learned a lot more about Baja. And I would just like to two wheels, pedal south of the border and just like avoid like kind of the fancy Baja Divide kind of route and go and see some of the other odds and ends.
Hmm. Hmm.
Plus, the people down there are amazing. Food's amazing, and you can camp anywhere.
That's awesome. And did you ever go to any beaches along that? Did you
Um,
go along the
pretty
coast
much.
at all, or were you a little bit more inland?
Um, yeah. So most of it was. So in the north, I was in the mountains, basically south of Takati. From Takati down to I can't remember the name of the town, and then from there, Valley de Trinidad out to the ocean on the west coast, and all the way down until just south of Santo Tomas, and then cut over to San Felipe, and then all the way down the east coast. So you've got this cold ocean current on one side, which is amazing and just like glorious, and then you go over the other side, and you're on these beaches, you walk into the water and realize it's 80 degrees, and it's like
Yeah.
this is. I wish it was fresh water and I could have a real bath in this.
Yeah.
And then basically all the way down to La Paz, and then bus to Cabo, and took a bus home.
Hmm. So did you do I guess what you'd call the official Baja Divide route, or did you do a little bit of a variation off that?
It was so. This is the official Baja Divide route came out in like 2015, I think,
Mm.
2016. This was 10 years before that. Oh, 15 years before that.
Okay.
And so it's a little bit before. And
Yeah. Back when it was just some plans and you had to kind of
back,
wing it a
well, I
bit.
think even before that, because Jonathan and Lael, when they put that together, it's like talking to almost everybody who'd been down to Baja and really talked, kind of bike touring down there.
Yeah.
And there's been, as with everything, there's massive changes in infrastructure down there. There are bike shops down there. You go to San Felipe, you can go and buy, replacement parts for your specialized e-bike. 25 years ago, it's like I'm sure there was a bike shop there, but it's a guy with a hammer and something and a crescent wrench, and he can
Yeah.
fix
Yeah.
something for you. So Baja's brilliant.
I've never been to Mexico or a lot of those places, but you know, even just going out to do the stagecoach and some of the other ones that I've done, it's
Hmm.
it's been cool just being able to see these different landscapes, and you go into these different little towns, and I like to do just enough planning where I don't really know what to expect. So you kind
Yeah.
of, you don't really know what you're going to come across exactly. And yeah, it's always just fun to kind of have um, those different flavors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the advantage that a bicycle gives you. On foot, you kind of got a plan because you can only carry so much stuff. On a bike, you can get away with going, oh, I've got to ride another 10 miles before I can get refueled, restocked, everything. And then I can camp somewhere here. So you can still camp as if you're walking. In a car, you've kind of got to, oh, I'm not sure if I can park here, or I'm not sure if this is an official campsite, because it's not like you can pull off into sleep in a ditch, which is kind of one of my
Yeah,
favorite sayings.
yeah, you can be
Like,
a little bit more agile with it, a little
yeah.
stealthy if you need to
And
be.
so, you've got that perfect balance between, speed and hide in the ditch kind of mentality about stuff. And yeah, I've slept in plenty of ditches because it's like
I'm
that.
proud
My
of it.
Gore-Tex. Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, hell
I
yeah.
mean, I've got a Gore-Tex bivy bag, and I'm not afraid to use it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So,
Cool. Well, I want to jump into what Penhale is all about. Penhale
what
Bicycle Company.
what is Penhale? Oh, that's a question and a half.
Well, and so I saw on your website that you officially started in California in 2014. So
Uh-huh.
interested in how that started, your thinking process there, but also where'd the name Penhale come from?
So, easy question first. So, Penhale is it's a little village in just over the water from Plymouth in the southwest of England in Cornwall called Penhale. Well, actually, higher Penhale. It's a hamlet. I'm not sure exactly what the definitions are between village, hamlet. There's some medieval thing there, but that's where my parents live. And I lived there for a little while when I moved down that way. And for a long time, we had this joke that the workshop at the top of the garden, when my dad was still alive, he'd go up there, work on his various projects, like his 1930s motorbike and all the other stuff. And we joked that was Penhale Engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking for a name for my bike company after I got laid off from Felt. I'm going, I have no idea what the hell am I going to call this company? I mean, it's like, I need something. And I just kind of stuck on Penhale Bicycle Company. Yeah, that would be pretty good because it means something to me, easily trademarkable, and it has a really good story behind it. Because it's like a family connection. So that's kind of where we got the name from, and as far as why. So I've worked in the bike industry on and off since on and off. Swept floors at a bike shop in the UK. Worked with a frame builder for a little bit. Worked tech support and customer service for one of the kind of cool kid manufacturers, cool kid distributors in the UK. We did Hayes brakes on one side through to Middleburn, all of that kind of stuff. And whilst I'm doing that, it's like, mountain bike racing. That's fun. But whilst I was doing it, I sat down with a friend and went, I want to build a touring bike. And he went, okay, great. And it's like cantilever brakes and 700C wheels with narrow tires. And I went, no. 26-inch wheels. I said, take a 2.2 knobby. And at the time, this was really pre-disc brakes. High front end, drop bars. And he went, this is stupid. No one's going to buy it. So he built it. and a lot of people kind of liked it. And that kind of, I mean, for me, it was perfect. It was a really kind of it was kind of an aggressive geometry for a mountain bike, but that wasn't his point. You could load it up with panniers, front and rear. And so I went through and designed that. We built it. And I just wasn't in a position where I could do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of fast forward to, when I started Penhale, well, when I was laid off at Felt, it was like, my brain goes, that is kind of the bike that I think I need to do. It can take drop bars. It can take flat bars. It's
At the time, was there not really much of a mixed terrain touring bike on the market, would you say?
There are a few small companies, little companies who are doing stuff, but for the most part, everybody was like Specialized, Trek, Giant, GT, Felt. It's like, well, no one's going to want a bike like that. That's a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
No, and Surly were kind of coming along with their bikes, like the long haul trucker and that kind of stuff. And so, I looked at like what else was out there, and it's like, I'm going to make something that's kind of unique. 29-inch wheels and tires were, kind of everywhere at that point. And so, it's like, I'm going to build something that'll take a 2.2-inch tire or something smaller with fenders. It'll take every bolt-on part you could care for, like racks front and rear, fenders front and rear. You can put like an everything cage wherever you want. At least 3 bottle cages. And actually, on the original bike, you could mount 5 bottle cages. And that was the kind of the bike that I wanted to build. And so basically, I just drew it up. It took a lot longer than I wanted to get it actually built at the factory I wanted. But I knew that that's kind of what I wanted to do. And the whole goal isn't for me, is not to make money. I'd like to make money because I have a mortgage to pay, but it's to make the bike that most people really should be riding. Everybody out there is so caught up with the marketing of this, the marketing of that. And, that's kind of one of the philosophies that I've stuck with, is like, this bike will do 98% of the riding that you want to do. How often do you go to a bike park? Oh, I go there once a year. You can rent a bike. How often do you race a criterium? Well, I thought about doing it once. Pretty sure you can find someone who will let you borrow the bike or put like narrow tires on. Everything else, ride this bike. And it's been, I'm not saying it's a battle to get people to, get through the marketing of, the BS that all these big brands have. But the people who have, the Gypsy go, this is the bike I ride all the time. I have a fancy new titanium bike out there, and I should have ridden it today when I went for a ride. And I went, screw it, just jumped on my old Gypsy and just hammered through some of the trails. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's like, this is a bike you can ride 98% of the time. It's affordable. The goal was always an under $800 bike. Sorry, under $800 frame. You can build it up with whatever you want. If you have an old 29er and you're, kind of hanging up on the rafters, take the parts off, put them on that. It'll all fit. You can lock it up anywhere because it's got nickel plating. That it will rust if you don't take care of it. The rust will come through the plating in certain places. But hey, do you have a bit of Scotch-Brite? You go, WD-40, and it's good. That bike will last you another 20 years.
And that was a steel frame, right?
Yeah, so it's Japanese chromoly. We sourced that out of a little company in Japan. It's all custom butted for our needs. The cool bit is the frame builder is a little family frame builder, and they're in China. They're a Taiwanese owned company, but there's 3 welders they have there. Super nice people. I mean, I got invited to the wedding of one of the frame builders, well, one of the welders.
Hmm.
It's like that, and he was marrying the sales girl who was the daughter of the guy who owned the place. It's that kind of company, and that's what made me feel a lot better about building bikes in China, because
Hmm.
obviously there's all the political side of things, there's the big business side of things, but no, these are family. They're really
Yeah.
cool at what they do, and I've known them for a really long time. It's like, no, I'm going to work with these guys.
And when you're
You know,
when you're getting to connect with them on an individual level like that, I mean, you're getting to see
yeah,
it firsthand. Yeah.
yeah, like walking over the border between Hong Kong and China, and the girl who owns the company's sitting there. She drove a taxi down to pick me up, and she goes, "Hey, do you want hot dogs and some beer on the way?" We pull into Shenzhen, and we're like, there, have some food, and then we go down to our little factory and hang out there. And it just feels like we're all family. I mean, unfortunately, COVID kind of put pay to that, and they're all back in Taiwan now. But that's a whole different
Yeah.
level
Yeah.
of stress.
Um, with the Japanese chromoly, is that, you know, is that a different, I guess what would be the way you would say it? Um, the alloy or the that might be more with like aluminum, but the just the ratio of the steel, is there something about that source or about that the way that that steel is manufactured or designed that's a little bit different than other steel that's used like on other steel bikes, or is it kind of a similar?
So regular chromoly, you would classify that as 4130. Brain's not working right now on the breakdown. Between chromium and all of the other. It's every piece of steel that you get is an alloy.
Mhm.
Iron is the base thing, and then you break it out from there. Japanese materials typically are number one, far more pure. They start off with a pure base metal and a pure alloy. They're more traceable. They are a lot more accurate. None of it's seam welded. So quite often, what you'll have, there's 2 ways of making a tube, a piece of steel tube. Number one is taking a piece of flat rolled steel, folding it up, and welding it. Great. Is that the strongest? It can be if it's done really well. True Temper do that. And that's, True Temper steel is some of the best on the planet. Most of it is not, though. The Japanese maker I use, basically, they take a piece of billet steel, and in the same way that Reynolds do, they pierce a hole through that, and then it's drawn, and it's pierced and rolled. So that is basically one continuous piece of steel that's never had a joint welding in it. And they can roll the internals of it. They can put the butts, and the butts where the thicker sections versus the thinner sections. They can put that wherever you realistically need. And mine are a little heavier duty, so the butts closest to the weld are a little longer, and that adds a little bit to the stiffness, but doesn't add anything really much to the weight. And it just means that frame will last a lot longer. And the Japanese are a lot more. It's I'm trying to say this without sounding. it's it it's a lot more.
Like a
Um,
perfectionist kind of?
Yeah. Well, number one, the Japanese are perfectionists. Yes, the Japanese are
Yeah.
perfectionists on anything, but I trust them a little bit more to do exactly what I need. There's no gray areas. Don't
Mm-hmm.
get me wrong. I mean, there are places in China that I would trust with my life on stuff. That people who are making the new Grytstone titanium, you know, they're flawless. I mean, I've showed that to some very, very high end frame builders over here and said, we can't touch that. Whereas, there's always going to be a time where you go out and source a product. And you go, well, these welds are a little kind of ropey. This material is a little off. Like the original Surleys, they use their original chromoly, and it's brilliant. I still have a 1x1 that I got in the first year of the Surly 1x1. Thing is amazing. Welds aren't brilliant. I know the factory who did it, and I know why they're not brilliant. But that thing's never going to fall apart. It's that perfect kind of,
Mm-hmm.
kind of grocery store, kind of beer run bike.
Yeah. And I guess
Um,
there's some margin, right, as far as like the tolerance or margin for error in some ways.
yeah, there is. I mean, there's a tolerance in manufacturing, whether it's on alignment, whether it's on material properties, um, things like weight, geometry, all of that. Um, the worst thing, honestly, is like allowing certain things like welding to go through QC without being, kind of properly checked. Because if there's one thing that'll kill a bike frame, it's bad welds.
Mm. Yeah.
Typically the material itself, you can kind of get away with it. It's like it's not going to crack. But it's if someone's cooked it when they welded, and that's why you got to go with someone you trust, which is why I trust my guys.
Yeah. Well, so I'm interested. I do want to talk about that new Grytstone titanium frame. But I think one good way to lead into that would be when you talk about getting into frame building, and now you've been doing it, for a while. Already have quite a few under your belt, as far as models go. Um, is there? There probably, there for sure was a learning curve, I would imagine, to doing the frame building. You
Yeah.
sound like you had, some experience with some of that manufacturing and stuff, but could you talk a bit about the learning curve and getting to now the Grytstone and maybe kind of walk us a bit through, how do you go from design to production? Like what does that kind of look like?
So, as far as like, how I got into it was basically hanging out with a frame builder in the north of England. Um, and him telling me, I'm going, this is what I want. And he said, great. There's a milling machine over there. Basic geometry. You need to put this milling bit up against the end of the tube and miter this. And then, between the two of us, we brazed that road frame, which is still hanging out there. Brilliant frame. Don't try and ride it. It's a brilliant time trial frame. It's just a little too flexy for its
It's
own
nice
good.
to look at.
Oh yeah, it's glorious to look at. Actually, I did ride that a lot. I mean, I've
Yeah.
probably got a few thousand miles on that bike, but a lot of it's like, obviously you get the inspiration. And like for me, the inspiration is always something that's a little left or right of center. Um, and so when I started playing around with frames, so like the turret steel 26-inch wheel steel touring frame that I built, very simple. For me, it was just sitting down, drawing out what I wanted in just it was pen and paper because I didn't have CAD at that time, like mid 90s. But this is what I need. I know what the geometry needs to be. and then sitting down with my friend who was a frame builder, and between the two of us, mitering the tubes, well, selecting the tubes, mitering the tubes, welding and brazing. Kind of simple. When you move towards where I'm at now with Penhale, it's the same kind of thing, just on a very different scale. So obviously, for me, I have the idea, so okay, so you come to me saying, hey, I've got this idea for a bike. And I'm like, that's a great idea. We put this bike down on, whether it's in AutoCAD, whether it's in BikeCAD. BikeCAD is brilliant. Any of I'll put stuff in 3D sometimes as well. It's more complex. We'll come up with an idea that we know we want. From there, I have to decide, okay, so I know X number of frame builders in Asia. Can I get somebody to build me a prototype? And how much is it going to cost? I mean, I've luckily, having done this for enough years, I know enough frame builders over there that could probably do it. If not, I have a trading company who's based in Taiwan who can shop an idea around. And then they will go, here's a quote. Guy X can build it. Mr. Chen down in Tainan can build it. Great. Tell me about what his capabilities are. I don't want to just jump into somebody I don't know. I have guys I trust. And from there, we build up ourselves a prototype. We test it. And we basically, shop it around as far as, hey, Dallas, you came up with this idea. You've written it. Do you think this is great? Don't let me kind of interfere with your thought process on this. Do you like riding this bike? Does it do what you think it should do? And then from there, you say, no, we need to, you're missing one bottle, boss. It would be perfect if we had this. You go back, build another prototype, and move forward from there. And it's the same obviously in every industry. It's a lot easier in bicycles, honestly, because, you got a guy like me who's got friends and family in Asia who can talk to somebody, rather than, hey, you want to make a new laptop. Oh, good luck. I don't want to get down, that road of stuff. But then we'll build a second prototype. Honestly, though, that's the easy bit. It's when you come to, great, we got a good idea here. How are we going to sell this thing? Because honestly, the marketing side of things, it's not even necessarily that it takes money. It's just knowing the right people and moving that out to the right people, because that bike might be the most amazing thing on the planet. I think that, the Gypsy, when I launched that, probably like that, is that 98% of the time, that's the bike everybody should be riding. But I'm not a millionaire. I'm actually kind of glad I'm not a millionaire, but that's another discussion for another time. But that's kind of it's a lot simpler than a lot of people think. But you have to have those connections.
And
without stuff.
Is it are they built to order, or do you actually have to do you order like a certain volume up front, or?
Don't quote me on this, but most I have, because I work with someone who's a family friend, I can get whatever I need. But most of the times it's like you're filling a container, like a 20-foot container of bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of frames. And unfortunately that's all paid up front.
So you're kind of thinking about the amount of, who's the demographic of customers, what would demand look like, we're going to promote this, market it in some way. And so, okay, I got to prepay, fill this container. And so you also got to figure out like the size ratio, right, of that you're going to get.
Yeah.
And kind of do all of that. And then kind of get it over here and then sell it from
Yeah, and
there.
it's exactly that. I mean, the hardest thing for me was thinking no one's going to want an extra large gypsy frame on like the last run that I did. It took me forever to sell the mediums and the smalls. Larges sold out very quickly, and all the extra larges went in the first couple of days. And it's like, where are all these tall people? And realizing that apparently I built a frame that fits guys. I mean, I'm 6'3", and it's like apparently I'm the only guy out there who's building bikes that fit big people, and which is kind of where I jumped over into the Grytstone, building the Grytstone the way I did, and it's that kind of no one ever knows. It's like if you look at the demographics of the USA, you should be between 5'10" and 6 foot tall. Apparently, everybody who wants my bike is 6 foot to 6'3".
So my question for you would be, now's your chance to kind of sell this thing. Why is the Grytstone kick ass? Let's talk about that. What's so cool about this bike? Who's it for? What was the idea here? And yeah, let's talk about the features and just kind of what this thing's all about.
So Grytstone itself, it's originally that was going to be the new titanium gypsy. I have to be very honest and say that I wasn't quite aware of all of the connotations having a name like gypsy. A very dear friend of mine was born in a horse-drawn cart in the Norfolk Broads, and she still is a gypsy, and quite happy to say to everybody that I had no idea on how passionate some people were about the negative connotations of that word. So, number one, I came up with a new name, which is Grytstone.
I like it.
And Grytstone is, if you go to the north of England, if you're a climber, you climb on Grytstone. It's hard, it's tough as nails. All the mills in the milled grain in the north of England used millstone grit, also known as Grytstone. So that's kind of where the name came from. And so I wanted to basically build, something that would go along the lines of that, kind of like tough as nails bike. But I also wanted to make the ultimate bike in that area. And so I the geometry is almost the same as the original gypsy frame. Half a degree shallower head angle, just because I wanted to relax it out a little bit. Because, hey, if you are going to be one of those people who decide you're going to race and be riding through the night at 2 o'clock in the morning, this bike is relaxed enough you can take your hands off the handlebars and not worry about it, even though you can't see where you're going. But basically, down tube was beefed up a little bit because titanium, you need a little extra torsional stiffness. And I don't care what anybody says, there's no such thing as top tube stiffness on a bike. Top tube flex, but it's all controlled by the down tube. Basically, you go like this, that tube that goes that way is the torsional member in it. I also wanted something that was kind of cool and clean without compromising some of my ideas. So, didn't want to have full housing for the rear derailleur all the way to the rear derailleur stop. I wanted to have hoses internally, but I wanted to be kind of creative about it. Because I don't want to have, a fully integrated, like you'll see a lot of the newer carbon. Can't remember the company who's making a carbon bikepacking bike, and it's everything runs through through the stem and the headset. That doesn't help anybody if someone's got to fix something. So I wanted to make it workable, so you could, if you have a problem on the trail, you can fix it. So basically, all the cables run down through the down tube. Designed a bottom bracket with a little trap door on the bottom, and all the hoses and cables run underneath there, hidden out of the way, but they're separated out from where the bottom bracket is. So if you actually take the bottom bracket out and the crank on the bottom bracket out, you can't see the cables. They run internally. The only cable that's a little weird is there's an internal dropper routing which comes out the top of the down tube and into the bottom of the seat tube with a little, either a hose or piece of cable, unless if you're going to do like wireless or whatever. It had to have adjustable dropouts for chainstay length. So if you break a rear derailleur, you can turn it into single speed easily. You also have to be able to run 135 quick release. You have to be able to run 142 and 148 boost on the same frame. The frame has to be able to take at least a 2.4 tire at the back. On the fork, you have to be able to match that or go bigger. I mean, you can actually go to 27.5 by 3 on the front quite comfortably. And with an option of a regular fork or a boost fork. And, time of purchase, you can pick whichever one you want. Yes, it's titanium. Yes, it's reasonably light, but it's not designed to be light. Because the problem is every single other manufacturer out there, look on the web, well, you talk to them and say, oh, you can ride this. You look at their website and you go, oh yeah, 225 pounds max. What they don't tell you is that includes rider. It includes your luggage, your water, and the bike. So I'm 280
The bike
pounds.
itself.
Yeah, because it's all up weight.
Yeah.
Most of these frames can deal with it, but they basically, if you go over that, have an issue, who's going to cover that under warranty?
Mm-hmm. Yep, liability.
And that was kind of my conversation with a couple of manufacturers. I was down at Sea Otter and I said, it says 225, and they went, yeah. It's like, me, I can't ride your bike then.
Well, you bring up a good point though, is like at that point, if you're including, because I don't think people are really thinking that much. For one, are you looking at the weight limit? For two, okay, you could not even be that heavy of a person.
Yeah.
But then now you're riding a fully loaded bike. It seems like it actually wouldn't be too difficult to hit that threshold.
Exactly. What's a water bottle weigh? Like a pound and a bit. So when I was racing, when I moved over here, I'd come off a year of doing stupid bike rides and races. I weighed 185 pounds. Okay, I'm going to buy myself the lightest titanium bikepacking rig out there, 25 pounds. So I've got 15 pounds that I can load that bike up with camping gear and all of the other stuff. And it's just not going to work. And so that's, one of the most important things for me is to build a bike that I can ride.
Yeah.
And like, you're at what's the average current adult male's weight in the US is like 195, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So basically, most people in the United States who want to buy a bike, who are not racing it, cannot ride any of these bikes. And that was my goal.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with the new steel version of it as well. The steel version will actually take quite a lot more. It won't weigh a lot more because I've been very creative with some of the new tubes.
So do you know the weight limit? Do you do testing or simulations to know what is the weight limit of your titanium frame then?
So titanium frame will take 350 pounds.
Okay.
and that's rider and gear, not including the bike.
Okay.
And then the steel frame will probably take another 50. The steel frame, the steel Grytstone, again, flipping over the name from Gypsy to Grytstone. That's that world tour, world bikepacking kind of bike. If you want to go any heavier than that, a bike I've been holding in my back pocket for a while called the Vagabond. The last time I was riding in Baja, that was the bike I rode. I just couldn't justify bringing it to market with, the time everybody was fat bike crazy.
Mhm.
That one will take, you could load that thing up to like 450 pounds quite comfortably. And it's still like a 6.5, 7 pound frame. It's like surly kind of whatever the new mid-level surly touring bike is. It's that kind of weight.
Okay. And so, what would you say, having a titanium version and a steel version? I'm kind of curious this. I usually ride steel. I think titanium always looks cool, and
Mm-hmm.
I've thought it'd be awesome to have a titanium bike at some point. It is usually quite a bit more expensive.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say are the main, pros and cons between picking something titanium versus steel when it comes to a bike like this?
So, I mean, for me, the biggest thing is always going to be if I want a world tour bike, if I want a bike packing bike, I can ride around the world for the rest of my life. I'm buying titanium. If I am buying something for everyday use, probably going to go with steel. Um, I there's always this thing that and Surly, Salsa, all these steel brands have always come up with, well, you can get it fixed anywhere. No, you cannot. If you can find me a guy in the middle of nowhere in Mexico who can TIG weld back, any damaged part on your chromoly steel frame, I'll give you $100 right now, because you cannot just fix a steel frame with a stick welder. It's not that easy. And so go with something that has got a lot more ductility and durability long term, which is titanium. It's not as stiff. And that, one of the downsides to titanium is you're not going to load it up in the same way, because you get out of the saddle with panniers and you'll see, the frame will flex a bit more. Which is, kind of, that's where steel comes into its own. And steel's abusable, but if you can save yourself 3 pounds on a frame,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
With the steel too, I know that is something that has come up quite a bit. I mean, steel does have this reputation to be, extremely fixable wherever you are in the world. So I am
Mm-hmm.
curious about that when you say, you know, if kind of what I've heard, some people say is like, steel is really reliable and you're probably not even gonna have anything break. But if you did, you do want to know, you might have an option. So if you did find somebody that could weld it, let's say you're out in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere and somehow you come across that, is it more that, okay, maybe somebody in a pinch could weld it where you might be able to get to the next place to get a different bike or something? Or is it more like it wouldn't be a long-term solution? It would
Yeah.
at least get you out of a pinch or
It's you could. I mean, a good friend who was over from the UK. He was down in mainland Mexico, broke his frame, um, had somebody do a little bit of work to it, rode down. Ended up in Guadalajara, had the company in the UK air freight him a frame to Guadalajara, went to a bike shop, had it worked on. So yeah, you can do it. but chromoly, especially better quality chromoly, is a hard thing to work with. Unless it's on braze. If you've got a guy there with a gas torch and some brass, you can probably fix it. You can also probably fix titanium. It's like some of the earliest titanium frames out there were brazed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which makes a lot of people laugh. It's like brazing titanium. Well, yeah, it's like that's that's how a lot of stuff was put together.
And is the titanium a certain ratio of titanium too? Is it like a certain? I'm not sure the
Yeah,
differences in how that works, but it's a certain type of titanium.
yeah, it's custom butted 324 titanium, which is like the regular bike grade, and then the dropouts are water cut and then CNC'd 6.4. 325 is like it's the best balance. That's it. Kind of if you were looking at chromoly, that would be your 4130. That's does everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's light. It's strong. It's ductile. It's good stuff. But there's the dropouts. So the fork dropouts are 3D printed. Bottom bracket 3D printed. And that's all CP titanium because you can't 3D print higher alloys of titanium. Whereas the dropouts are 6.4. The 6.4 titanium is crazy tough. And that's the equivalent of 4340, which is what you would use in an automotive axle or differential gearing. That's it's a lot harder and very stiff, very strong, fun material to work with. Stick that on a milling machine, I'll show you how painful it is.
Have you ever seen a titanium frame break or snap on the trail, or have you ever seen it, meet its limit?
I've seen a couple, but not mine because I don't have many of mine out there. But they can, like everything. I mean, every product on the planet has a limit.
Yeah, I'm just wondering too, because they kind of have obviously different yield points, but the way that they break, I would imagine, would be different. Like with titanium, is it sudden, or would it be more, of a gradual thing?
Titanium is very similar to steel, and out of everything, obviously number wise, I've seen more steel frames break than I have done alloy frames. I've seen more carbon frames break than all of them. Titanium, though, breaks in a very similar way to steel, because it's a steel alloy. It's a metal alloy, and so sometimes it's imperfections, sometimes it's weird loadings on the material, sometimes it's overheated kind of welds, and that fatigue point. So there's a reason on my bikes where the seat tube is here, the seat stays come in here, and the top tube comes in below. Because typically what happens is that is what's flexing when you're sitting on the saddle. And most frames, it fractures right here. Just from riding, not talking about impact or anything else. So I've, changed that positioning of everything just to accommodate that. But steel frames will fracture, be a fine crack. Aluminum frames, I've seen some bad breaks on aluminum frames. And I'm not saying that aluminum frames are bad. Aluminum frames are brilliant, done in the right way. Carbon frames, I have an evil following out there. XTR Di2, it's got electronically controlled shocks, everything on there. Going through my brain as I'm hitting like some of the big trails down here, my brain's going, oh, it's carbon fiber. Oof. So it's and that's the thing, it's horses for courses. If you're a world tour guy, if you can afford it, go titanium. If you are kind of just I just want a bike that runs. I can't remember her name, the girl who is does cycling about on YouTube. She runs a Surly long haul trucker, has done for 4 or 5 years. She's gone to most countries out there, on a steel frame. I mean, I still have my original, the bike I rode Baja. It's a Jamis Dragon 853. Got a 130 mil fork on it and rack on the back of it. It'll go on forever. So, wouldn't be scared off by material, but I'm always going to tell people, spend as much as you can to buy the best thing that you can. Or one of my titanium frames.
Well, I like the mentality of, I saw on your website, and I don't know if you'd call it the Penhale tagline or mission statement or what have you, but I like this mentality here. You say, explore the world or your backyard. And so,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you have these bikes that are designed to, be a do-it-all rig. You can do anything with it. Like you kind of said earlier, 98% of the time of whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like that idea of like, not just explore the world or your backyard, but it's also that like, there's so much, there's people that'll travel across the world to go explore somewhere else. And sometimes they'll miss exploring their own backyard. And so I think it is also important to kind of emphasize that there can be a lot of things in your own backyard to also explore. And when you're on a
Yeah.
bike doing stuff like this, it can make even going down the street, feel like its own adventure. So I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it kills me. It's like um, back in Manchester, there was a magazine article, and it was called Metro Trekking. And it was, I can't remember the name of the magazine now, but basically, we all went out with one of the journalists, and one of the guys at the shop I worked at had no idea these trails existed. And this is in the center of Manchester. And we're like driving to, kind of ripping through little tunnels by the side of the canal and stuff like that. Same thing with Eugene. You can, all of these little kind of back alleyways. And hey, you know what? If you want to go and ride in Mongolia, great. You want to go and ride, Altiplano, South America, where, ride through the Andes, the Atacama Desert, go for it. But don't forget that you can have adventures that are equally as inspiring in your backyard. Do a taco tour, brewery tour. One of my all-time favorite things we did in Southern California was we did a brewery century. And it was, it ended up being a very long 110 miles. But beers, tacos along some trails that people had never seen before. And it's like, just do it.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, hey,
Sounds like fun.
Anytime beer and tacos are involved, I'm good.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, I think for the most part that will do it. But what I wanted to check with you is, for one, people can go to penhalebicycleco.com
Yep,
follow Penhale Bicycle Co. on Instagram.
that's the one.
But what would you say? This Grytstone titanium pretty much is releasing over the next couple months. Is that kind of what it's
Yeah,
looking
we're
like?
about 2 months out. Yeah. I mean, we're about 2 months out from that. I'm about a month away from talking to everybody about the steel version of it. I'm kind of excited about the steel. I mean, it's a steel bike. I mean, I love titanium. I also love steel. That bike will be kind of fun as well, and that'll be kind of available August. Things have been a little weird, obviously pandemic and the bike industry in general is getting a little weird, but so mid-June, anyone who really wants one of the Grytstone titaniums, please let me know, because that'll help me get things moving with the factory, because we're tiny. I mean, right now it's me, a little bit of Jen, a little bit of Trevor in the UK, so anything we can do to build this is truly appreciated.
Cool. Well, I hope listeners find this, intriguing. I think, and by the time this comes out, it'll be early June, and I think, there's still pre-sale frames available on the website, right?
There are pre-sale frames available. We got a few of them, and if anybody sees that changes, email me. Let me know you sort of kind of heard about it on the podcast, and I'm more than happy to reach out with that better price.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for taking the time, Andy. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Alice. I'm great we finally got to chat.
Definitely.
All righty.
Well, that was a fun conversation. I'm glad Andy took the time to walk me through a lot of that and share it with everybody. We're both based in Oregon, so I do hope that we can connect in person and go on a ride together in the not too distant future. With that said, I do have a few updates for everybody that's been following the podcast and listening to these episodes. Thank you for joining us. One bit of news is that, unfortunately, as many of you might be aware if you do follow some of our social media channels, that Michael has closed shop at Band Bicycle Works. It was fun to do adventures with him and feature the shop, but he did feel like it was time for a change. He is going to do a family tour. Him, his wife, and their dog are planning on riding. Sounds like fun. So if you want to follow their adventure, this new stage in life, and see what's up out there, you can follow his new channel and Instagram at Wheels of Our Lives. I'll put a link in the description. I'm excited to see where this new adventure takes them. And if you've been following along since episode 1, where we featured Michael and Band Bicycle Works, you may recall that we talked a bit about me building a Surly Midnight Special. That has a lot of cool components on it, and I'm still waiting on one last piece to show up, so I'm still hoping that I'll be able to share that in the future. But while I was waiting on that, I ended up buying a fat bike. And so I've been riding the dunes out here, and me and a buddy actually just went and did the northern tier of the Oregon Coast Trail, trying to ride as much of it as we could on fat bikes, which included a lot of beach, a lot of sand. That was a cool experience. We're planning on doing a southern tier later this year, but I am hoping to be able to share some of that content with all of you soon. So stay tuned, more to come, more fun stuff, hoping to be able to feature more riders and cool people in the future. Everyone's out on their own type of adventure at their own level, and we just hope that we can share some of that fun stuff moving forward. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Pedal up that hill, it'll be worth the thrill. If you got the power of will to bike and camp and chill.